and a warm welcome to everybody. I am Anuj Kejriwal, part of the advisory board of Upflex India. I must say I am extremely delighted with this partnership with Upflex. It brings together the strength of both our firms. We are sure that Upflex's product and technology interface for booking flexi spaces, along with Anarock's robust distribution platform in India, is going to be a winning combination. Over the past 5 quarters, the pandemic has accelerated digital adoption, and we now realize that businesses can be run remotely from anywhere. Lack of office infrastructure in Indian homes, cost of holding real estate, safety of employees have all propelled this need. With this partnership, we plan to provide flex space solution to SMEs and large corporations across industries, taking away from any geographical restrictions. To discuss the future of flexible workspaces, we have an esteemed panel today. Let me start by introducing Karan Virwani. Karan is the CVO at WeWork India. Karan has been instrumental in bringing the 5th largest startup in the world to India. Outside of that, Karan also enjoys his food and runs 2 restaurants in Bangalore and a delivery application. We have Amit Ramani, founder and CEO, Office Space Solutions Private Limited. Amit runs India's largest network of co-working centers. Prior to starting Office, he has worked in leadership roles at Nelson Global, HOK Consulting, and the Toyota Motor Company. We have Sanjay Guleria, who is the founder and CEO of Roshan. At Roshan, Sanjay is committed towards sustainability and providing clean water. Sanjay is also a long-term partner of Upflex. Prior to this, Sanjay was co-founder and CEO of Exclusively.in, an online portal for Indian fashion, jewelry, and accessories. Next, we have Haresh Chawla, partner, True North. True North is one of India's most experienced and respectful private equity funds. Haresh has been keenly engaged in the consumer internet revolution in India from the early 90s and is credited with building many businesses like Money Control, Book My Show, Yatra, First Shop, and Home Shop 18. We have next on the panel is Mr. Sanjay Borai, Managing Director, Workspace Solutions at Accenture India. Sanjay is a seasoned CRE leader and a very keen follower of emerging tech trends on the future of workplaces. I'm extremely eager to hear your views on this topic, Sanjay. We next have Vincent Lotifier. He's the Chief Strategy Officer at Upflex and really the person behind stitching this partnership together. Vincent has over 3 decades of experience and worked in 8 countries in this time. We know Vincent from his days as CEO of JLL India. Welcome, Vincent. The last person I'm going to introduce is Mr. Anuj Puri, who's chairman of the Anarock Group. Anuj is the chairman and founder of Anarock. He has over 30 years of experience in Indian and global real estate markets and is a trusted advisor to developers, occupiers, and investors. After successfully running JLL for a decade, he set up Anarock in 2017, which is now India's leading independent real estate services company with comprehensive business services. These businesses are now spread across 14 offices in India and GCC with over 1,800 employees. I will now hand over to Anuj to give opening remarks.
Thank you very much, Anuj. This is great. Appreciate everybody's time this evening. Very excited, delighted to announce this partnership between Anarock and Upflex. Equally delighted that it is with Vincent, with whom I'd done an earlier partnership over a decade ago. And seeing him back in form to do another partnership has been great fun. We're going to talk a little bit about Upflex as we go through this panel. But it has been absolutely delight to bring the Upflex virtual co-working platform into India. with the help of Vincent, who is the Chief Strategy Officer at Upflex. Over this weekend, I was doing some research on co-working. And I was just wondering where did this really come from? The concept of co-working come from? And I looked at it, and it was really as recent as, I say as recent, but it was like in 2005, there was a guy called as Brad Newberg. And he was an entrepreneur based out of San Francisco. And he built up the first co-working space called as the San Francisco Co-working Space. And it was open only 2 days a week, Monday and Tuesday. And it brought in an intersection of real estate, technology, sort of people, communities, and people just thronged at it. And from 2005, you fast forward 16 years, today the global flex space market is estimated at over $8 billion. And it's estimated with the pandemic, this is going to move fast. And by 2025, it's going to be $13 billion. I was just looking at the research, and it showed that India itself has added 10 million square feet of new space since 2017. What will be interesting is to discuss, how this flex office and co-working really stacks up in India, particularly with the global COVID-19 outbreak. Is it going to accelerate? Is it going to sort of decline the growth of the flex offices? Is it going to be a core office strategy? Is it going to be core plus flex? Or, the weekend I was speaking with Sanjay Borai, and we were discussing, is it going to be core flex, or work from anywhere, and it becomes location agnostic? Many studies have been done on this one over the last few months, and it does show is that nearly 20% of corporate workforce is preferring to get into the flex office at least 1 day a week, and we'll see how this goes upon. And equally, I was looking at it. Is it just startups that are getting into the flex office co-working? Is it enterprise solutions? What has the success been on the co-working? And whilst researching on the co-working and flex office, I discovered actually Uber, both the partners, Garrett and Travis, both got together in a co-working space, to solve the cab problem in San Francisco. And that's where Uber, was born within that co-working space. And then similar was Instagram. Both the partners got together in a co-working environment and spent 8 weeks on just putting together the Insta app. And that's what really came out. So we're going to discuss this. What is a flex office? Is it a place where you can have sort of you play and mingle with people, you get your work done? Is it for you as a freelancer? Is it for you as a part of a large team? Is it for you just as working for yourself? What is that co-working space really meaning? So with this, I'm going to come, Sanjay Borai, to you first on the way that I have known your firm, and the way that over the last decade you have expanded is always doing build-to-suit buildings. Grade A space, build-to-suit, core office, commercial office, getting into it is. Do you think that co-working is an opportunity for you to grow space? And if it is, what are some of the issues or challenges that you think co-working has?
So, Anuj, in your previous role, you have been very close to, how we work, right? The advantage or the disadvantage, that I see, in the industry that I work with is we always have a long-term view, right? So, for example, sitting today, I'm planning for next 2.5 to 3 years. And as you recollect, we are either ahead of our demand or neck to neck with our demand. And probably that was the reason, and that I would say the single most important reason why we never had the opportunity to kind of experiment with the co-working space. But apart from that, and I was having this very interesting discussion with somebody, in the industry, and we were generally talking about the hybrid, uh, model that everybody is talking about. And then we started talking about the tier 2 cities. And I mean, the other key reasons are, one, I mean, we see infrastructure, the way we plan in terms of redundancy and everything, we see that as a challenge in co-working space. Business continuity is a big factor. And, another big factor, and that's where I gave you the example of tier 2 cities, is I have realized that in most of the cases, it is the client who tells us where they want to go, right? So for example, the very interesting data point is, and I've come across this pretty often, where more than 50% of the clients want to be in Bangalore, right? And their choice is one of our facilities, right? Compliance is another big issue that I see. I have personally been to many co-working spaces, where they won't even meet our egress norms. And in fact, some of the acquisitions that we have done in the past, we have to give up some of those facilities, and some of them were in co-working kind of setups. And most importantly, and this applies, I think, more to ITers, is your real estate strategy, the role of SEZ into it, what sort of a portfolio you're planning in STPI. So all these factors play a big role.
And then Sanjay, much of your staff has gone back to their hometowns, some of them in tier 2, tier 3 cities. Is there a thought that you are going to provide them with some kind of a formal environment in those tier 2, tier 3 cities, or your thought is that you're going to be asking them to come back to the head office?
This is a very interesting discussion, and I think once we start talking about it, we'll use all this time. I think we are yet to figure that out, right? And sometimes, on a lighter note, I often say that the policies for 18-year-olds are being made by the people who are 50, 55, like us. So, and let me again go back to the client example, because it is, and I was having this discussion, and we were actually talking about the existing presence in tier 2, especially, cities like Bhubaneswar or Cochin or Coimbatore and all that, and whether they have really taken off, right? And especially from IT's perspective, the answer is they haven't. So for example, we have been in Calcutta, though Calcutta is not a tier 2 city. We have been there for 7-8 years, but I mean, we haven't grown much in Calcutta, and so is the story with every other company, right? I think the other factor is, people are still looking at this as an experimentation. It's a fact that more than 50% of our people have moved back to their hometowns, right? So whether you start, or you, let's say, do this experimentation in a controlled manner, where you allow people to work in a hybrid manner, but in the city of their work, and then maybe expand it further depending on how this experience goes. All right. So there are many questions right now on the table. I mean, I think the bigger question is processes, policies. There is a lot of things that the organizations need to do, from a people perspective. For example, people want to be assured that if I work from home 90%, then that should not be held against me, when you do my performance. And will it become worse if I'm working out of my hometown, right? So I think there is a lot of work that needs to happen here. before people actually go and figure out what their version of the hybrid model would be.
Interesting. Amit, if I can come to you, two questions, leading from what Sanjay said is, what are you seeing within the profile of occupiers that you have at Office One? And second is, your presence in some of the tier 2 cities. What are you seeing as an experience of those tier 2 cities?
Thanks, Anuj, for having me on this panel. I think truly an esteemed group of panelists here. So let me start with your views, which you shared on one of the webinars, right? That would end up being a W-shaped recovery, which is spanning out, right? Just to give you a perspective, I think post Diwali last year, till about March, I think we were seeing pre-COVID level new sales, right? And in fact, March was one of the best months in our history of the business. In terms of occupiers, occupancy, physical occupancy, which is very relevant in these times. Between Jan, Feb, March, we saw almost 50% physical occupancy across almost all the cities, which are primarily the metro cities, the 7 metro cities. And we also saw, even in tier 2 cities where we are present, Chandigarh and Ahmedabad, there was fairly good occupancy. Another interesting fact which came up was that clearly, depending on the profile of the occupiers, right? Obviously, the IT/ITS was very limited in terms of a comeback, especially the multinationals were almost negligible in the centers. They too had started to come back in some capacity. The local multinationals, which were focused on the IT/ITS business, had already come back to about 50% occupancy level. One interesting fact that happened was that the SMEs, which was a good part of our business, about 30%, left us the fastest, right? So these were the guys who basically were these smaller cohort sizes of, let's say, less than 25 seats, left the fastest, but they came back the fastest. In fact, in the month of March of 21, any speculative seats that we had built, which was ready inventory that we built typically when we launch a center, I did not have a single seat available across 75 centers, right? Which tells you the guys who left the fastest came back the fastest, right? I personally believe that, clearly the playbook is being written in the US, right? Anybody who is vaccinated today, Goldman's and the JPs of the world, which will drive a lot of what will happen in India with IT/ITS, are saying that between July and September, we will have people back. So clearly the same playbook will play out, I think about a 3 or 4 month lag. Clearly the vaccination drives are going well. Anybody who wants a vaccine right now will get it, at least in the metros. So clearly we feel that by Diwali, most people in metros will get vaccinated who are able to come back to work. I truly feel the India story is very much intact, right? So demographics, democracy and demand will drive all of this. And I think there's going to be a new opportunity curated, especially from the occupiers as well as the co-working players and the commercial conventional office players. But I think the playbook, as Sanjay said, I think it's still being written out. Our firm belief is that co-working will do fairly well. It's created a new opportunity. Coming to the tier 2 cities, clearly, Anuj, the fundamental change is that distributed work is here to stay. Right. And I think that is very, very prevalent. We just completed a survey about 1,000 respondents across different geographies. And almost 78% of those want to work in a distributed fashion. So they want the choice of when they want to come out to a HO location, work near home or work from home. So clearly, I think a majority of that will play out in the playbook of whatever the occupiers do in India, because now the employee has the control, unlike in the last 15 years when the employer had the control. And I think we will have to work around that. So I think many tier 2 towns like Indore, Jaipur, Lucknow have great infrastructure, right? Education, smart city parameters, growing base of opportunities. We have seen a surge of demand in customers looking for setups in tier 2 cities. Obviously, those setups are fairly small compared to the metro, the 7 metros, but clearly they are looking to diversify their risk. They are looking to access this talent pool that might not ever come back to the tier 2 cities. And obviously, they are looking for some level of flexibility. That's why flex is certainly up there when they're taking a call, especially in the tier 2 cities. I think even though the tier 2 cities are going to do well, but 85 to 90% of the growth for all flex or conventional office will continue to be in the tier 1 metros. Yes, the base is small, so it will probably double this year in terms of size and scale for tier 2s. But clearly, the metros will continue to have a good portion of the demand. But I personally feel like you ask anybody who's a youngster, 6 p.m. Post 6 p.m. in Mumbai is very different than post 6 p.m. in Indore. So I think people will continue to gravitate towards tier 1 metros.
Yeah, I agree. Sanjay, if I can bring you back, Amit mentioned 2 points, and I just wanted your views. Amit mentioned is that before the second wave hit us, i.e. March 2021, he saw a surge of people physically getting back to the office. What has been your experience, one? And second is, Sanjay, we hear, and I'd love to know Amit's view as well, is that a number of corporates who had centralized offices and made sort of one very large HQ are now looking to decentralize offices and move closer to their employee base, and in the process, use co-working spaces rather than have their own spaces.
So, I mean, if you look at ITS specifically, we haven't seen a big enthusiasm for people to come back to office, right? I mean, I'll just give you, some numbers. So way back in June, July, and this is on the basis of critical work that we do for our clients. We identified some 10,000-11,000 people to come back, but till the time when the second wave hit and we asked people to go back, actually we didn't have more than 4,500 people across Accenture locations in India, right? And I also acknowledge that different industries have approached it differently. For example, there's a lot of movement in manufacturing, right? But at the same time, I think the amount of work that has happened on infra and especially telecom and all that, so that has specifically helped, the ITS workforce, and especially the new, relaxation that we all know about around the DOT guidelines, right? Now, when we talk about hybrid, way of working, and in fact, currently we are in a lot of discussions internally on what our definition of hybrid will be. And I also gave you the reasons why co-working specifically did not feature into, very actively feature into our real estate strategies. But I mean, the more now I think about it, more I see a good case of a fixed plus flexible, kind of a real estate strategy whereby, let's say 80% of your real estate portfolio is fixed, and 20% of your real estate portfolio is flexible, because now you are catering for a lot of people who are working from home, right? Or working from, let's say, anytime, anywhere. So that's where I see a good case. I see a very good case for, as you said, the hub and spoke model, right? So even if this controlled experimentation just happens, in the locations of the cities wherever you are, and as during this time, companies like us have also dropped their portfolio, right? And looking at the supply situation, looking at the fact that people will continue to work from home for next few months, right? I personally, in my industry, I don't see things coming back the way they were for another year or so, right? So this hub and spoke model, in my view, works really well. where you have certain key locations, in the city of your presence, and then you're catering to a large number of your people through, satellite offices where co-working can play a big role.
And then, Amit, you're seeing the hub and spoke as well from corporate occupiers?
So, Anuj, I think the corporate occupiers, the large ones, were fence sitters before the COVID pandemic, right? Today, they are front and center. Most of these, have taken that call that hub and spoke and distributors is the way to the future. And clearly, obviously, Flex, is a key part of their strategy going forward.
Super. Karan, I just want to come to you. You've raised a ton of money during this pandemic in WeWorks. So the investors who gave that money, what did they say to you? They gave all this money saying, "Is here, Karan, go ahead."
Don't lose it, they said. No, I'm just kidding. So, I think, from the time we started to where we are today, we've been big believers that this is obviously going to play a big part in the future of how occupiers, look at real estate and how the future of our country or future of the world actually works. When we as Embassy first got into it, it was to offer, something not only to startups, but also, symbiotic to our our core business, which is obviously leasing to some of the largest occupiers, where we believe that there's always a need for flexibility when companies of that size are growing and expanding and continuing to grow. Today, I think that flexibility has taken just a different meaning in itself, right? And we've seen it as our business evolves, as the sector evolves. Earlier, we were looked at as flexibility just because of tenure, right? Because we could give a month to month versus 6 months, versus like 3 years. And today, flexibility has actually changed to, all sorts of things. It's flexibility in tenure, it's flexibility in location. It's also space on demand when I want it, because of the current circumstances and current situation that people are in. They require infrastructure and office, maybe not all of the time, but like you said, 2 days a week or 3 days a week or for an hour. Those things have definitely changed. So, some of the CRE heads we have on this call, I'm sure are, evaluating that, is that there are different use cases for different types of employees within my operation now, right? And the headquarters or the central headquarters doesn't fit all of them. I actually need very different types of models for very different employees and different operations that both are cost effective, but also give my employees an experience that makes sense, from them. And I've seen that, working in different locations or not having to be in a central office actually works. But for a lot of people, especially in India, the work from home is not a long-term solution. So you do require an office to come to, or a place to come to, where you can create a space which is work focused and not just home focused. And so I think today where we stand, we're actually at a point where going back to your thing on the capital was really like, so we can survive and kind of weather through this kind of storm for some time. And we see that the next 3, 5, 10 years from today is going to be exponential than what we actually exponential growth than what we actually believe pre-pandemic. And so investors or whoever we're speaking to now, I think is not taking a view of the next 3 months or the next 6 months in any sector. I think investors are taking a 3 to 5 year view across all businesses, and seeing that what are the types of businesses that are going to come out of this as tailwind businesses, and what are going to really directly be impacted by what the future is after COVID. And I think like Flex and where we are definitely in the tailwind part of that. And like Amit said, I think being in India with the demographic, with the challenges of work working remotely or working from home, and also the speed at which a lot of occupiers continue to hire. I mean, one thing I keep telling everyone is that if the whole world is going to digitize because of COVID, all of the work is going to come to India. I mean, that's like it's a natural and almost a guaranteed phenomenon when we look at it. And so if that's going to happen, there's going to be many more businesses that are formed in India. Some of the larger guys are going to continue to grow and keep growing. And I think already you saw a few people say that 20%, it could be 20%, 80-20. That 20% of say $1 billion of a billion square feet of real estate is a huge amount, right? That's 200 million square feet that is going to become flex, and I think that we see that as a huge opportunity for sure.
So two follow-up questions, Karan. One is, what's the proportion of small businesses versus large corporates within your occupier profile? And the second one is, what attracts people to flex spaces? What attracts people to WeWorks? Is it technology? Is it flexibility in real estate? Is it community? Is it fun? What is it?
All of the above. No, I think that our mix right now is actually almost 70% enterprise and 30% smaller businesses. But to Amit's point, I think it was what happened last year is that a lot of the smaller businesses were the first to leave, or really the value proposition of our whole business was this is that when things actually are not working out, you can kind of get rid of the cost of real estate and not have to hold it for a long period of time. And it was intended for different industries to have different cycles, and so you'll have ebb and flows across the member base depending on the industry. I think it's just a moment in time where everyone is impacted pretty much the same way. And so the smaller businesses obviously are the ones that retracted first, which are showing that we have 70% enterprise versus versus otherwise. But we definitely see it as a much larger trend. And again, what Amit said is that a lot of occupiers, a lot of these enterprises were on the fence or not even thinking flex workspaces as an option at all, because I have my own real estate. I can do it myself. I have enough capital. It's not really a worry for me. But I think now, because of what employees want, and different modes of working and all of that actually coming to light, all of these occupiers are actually thinking about how to do a mix of strategy. So, to your point, why are they coming? It's varied, capital conservation, flexibility and tenure, and ability to scale and only take what I need now, see how things play out, take more later, dispersed workforce, and things like, I think what Upflex are doing, or what we've launched with WeWork On Demand, especially for large enterprises, is giving space when someone needs it, whether that's a person that belongs to a large company, or whether it's just like an individual freelancer. You're going to see a very different way of consuming space and consuming office that's going to come out of this out of the pandemic and further from there. And it's going to be very different, and it's going to evolve as things play out, as well as we understand how people are going to react to coming back to the office. Are they not? And size and scale of these centers. I think one use case that we've seen actually is companies coming to us and asking for what we call a collaboration hub. So what we've realized is people are not using offices really just to sit and have rows of desks to work at. They actually gonna want these offices for places where they can bring teams together that have been working remotely for some time, and use that as a way to innovate, to create culture, to celebrate something as an organization. So that physical meeting point is always going to be needed. And as flex providers, we're so nimble in being able to change our configuration of our space to depending on what people want is, becoming a huge factor of why companies are sort of looking at it.
Yeah, Harish, if I can sort of move to you, you've been a serial entrepreneur, serial investor. You've also been a sort of an early believer of disruption in real estate, and you've been amongst the early investors in many prop tech companies. How do you see the space panning out, particularly after this COVID era in the real estate?
Yeah, thanks, Anuj. So I'll keep it short and quick so that other people have time as well. You have to look at COVID as a discontinuity, one aspect. Second aspect is that if you leave out software and IT businesses and then look at co-working, then you see a fundamentally different situation, because IT and software businesses already have tools that allow them to work asynchronously. So they're designed like that. But regular firms are not designed to let the whole company work remotely. You have to onboard people, like Karan was talking. So there'll be a different need that will come. And they will also be quite focused on the costs that are involved. So what you will find is that this whole business actually is a combination of trying to run an airline business and a fitness business, actually. You want the community and the spare capacity that the gym business throws up or the fitness business throws up, and has the cost structure, how low you rent at, how many hubs you have. All of those factors will play in, much like the airline business. So I think that combination of how you sweat your assets and how you create packages for corporates, because corporates will actually need, like Karan was talking, that, okay, I need to meet everybody on Wednesday and Friday. Inherently, work is not designed to be asynchronous for most companies. And we don't have the tools. The only tool that companies are using now is Zoom. That's not really a tool. If you ask a software company, there are multiple tools that help them work and manage remotely. And that's the way the whole company is designed. So I think when the larger enterprises, which are traditional business, will come back, a part of those companies will actually have to go to office. And remember, what's great for the employee, 100% flexibility, is not great for the organization. So I think you'll find that there'll be a continuum somewhere where certain functions and certain people will have to go to work somewhere. Maybe that's near home on a regular basis. So I think the whole kind of demand that will be placed on this sector will be quite different. And therefore, how people do capacity planning, how they build a brand, and how cost effectively they run their business. I mean, you know how airlines are run. They can be run very badly. Or you can run them like Southwest, where your efficiencies are there in your cost, but you're a great brand as well. I think that combination of things, plus how many aircraft do you have? So how effectively you contract for your aircraft, all of those things matter. So when you put all this together, you'll find that we are in the middle of this transition, but it's complete discontinuity. I think you're on a 10-year bull run, if you want to call it, in co-working spaces. But the combination of needs are going to evolve. And you'll find that actually companies will discover that they need to get people in on certain days of the week into a rhythm. COVID has broken all the rhythms, and we are all working in emergency right now, but that's not the way it can continue. So rhythm has to be restored, and that will happen post-vaccination. The rhythm will be different, but the rhythm will create new demands for this kind of business.
And then, Harish, you're absolutely correct in your observation, and I didn't think it through like that. That, the IT companies, the more evolved companies in that space, have the requisite tools.
Yes.
But, many other companies in the non-IT space don't really have those tools to...
IT company work is also in components, in modules. 3 people can get together and finish a whole job. You can give them but regular companies need to brainstorm, need to connect, need to iron out several communication and alignment issues, create culture. So my sense is, without rhythm, I think we've now all survived without rhythm for 1.5 years now. I don't think this state of affairs can continue. People also want to be the feeling of going into work and then leaving work as well. All of those things have blurred, and there is no need for that to continue. It just creates extraordinary stress on an organization. Imagine a new employee joining a regular traditional business and getting onboarded without ever seeing his boss or his colleagues. Companies have 2 networks. I mean, there is a formal organization chart network, but the work is done on the informal network, and that's completely gone. Half the people won't even gossip on a Zoom link on the fear it can be recorded. So it's reality that there is no water cooler conversation at all, because everything has become stilted, because there is always this fear of distance. I don't know how much I can confide in somebody. I can't whisper on Zoom. All those issues are there.
I just want to change gears with you, Harisha. I know you have a lot of exposure with several investors. With China not necessarily being in the good books of many sort of at least the North American, European institutional investors, do you see that a lot of that investment will be drawn into India, particularly in the startup world?
Absolutely. I think both. India has got two great opportunities. One is the inherent internet opportunity where China is building its own version and we are part of the whole Western internet as such. So I think that there's clearly two internets coming up, and therefore India will be at the forefront of the open, free Western internet, and that's going to drive billions of dollars of VC money into India. But equally, the whole idea that India is now the digital export house of the world. So we could earlier send people out. Now we can sell people and software both. So I think the next 5-10 years, we'll see a lot of software development products coming out of India. And those companies getting funded hugely because Indian software is now finding acceptance all over the world. So even that barrier has got broken. You don't need to be building a SaaS company in US to get acceptance from customers there. So I think we are sitting on a massive opportunity from all fronts, that you will find that in fact I think we'll run out of engineers to supply. Actually, our challenge is really that talent costs have gone up humongously because there is no supply, and you'll find money coming into this market like crazy. We've just seen the beginning of that actually. We have a large domestic market and we have a large global market. I mean, those two things, and you have a China that really people are moving away from. So almost three vectors that are driving this massive opportunity.
Yeah. And as you rightly said, is let's hope that we have a 10-year bull run.
Yeah, I think no question that it's already on way. In fact, our challenge is to be really on talent, which even the traditional companies will realize. You can see how HDFC's banks apps are failing every few weeks. Many traditional businesses are really going to struggle with getting and retaining talent. And therefore, they'll have to give all the flexibility that employees need, actually. You'll find that HDFC Bank or any other bank will say, you want to work out of Indore, we'll set up a bar for you and we'll give you free beer.
Sanjay Guleria, I'm going to move to you. I have three questions, Sanjay. One is, as an occupier of the flex spaces, what are the sort of key assessment parameters that you look before you choose that, this is the flex operator that I want to go with?
Absolutely. Hello, everybody. I'm probably the least qualified person on the call, but I'll try to provide some perspective from a personal one. We started our latest startup a few years ago. And when starting a startup, you don't have any capital and you don't have any employees. So you need a lot of flexibility and scale. And so that's why, fortunately, at the time, co-working was becoming a reality. I didn't have to sit in a Starbucks and pretend to take meetings and try to have an 8-person conference in a Starbucks. So co-working started to move. I think, as Karan had put it, this notion of flexibility is continuing to move down and evolve from what it means. So I think flexibility was critical for us. Productivity is super important. In a startup, of course, every minute matters. You're burning somebody else's money and you need to make sure you need to get some return on that capital. So reducing commute time, having flexibility in terms of location. Very similar to Vincent, I'm a global citizen, have worked and lived and operated out of 4 different countries. I don't have a sexy accent like him, but at least I do have that experience. And so from day one, we wanted to be a global company. And the design team was based out of the Netherlands in Amsterdam. The engineering and business teams were based out of New York. So that notion of having a global footprint really limited the number of options we had. We, of course, looked at WeWork, and that was a great initial starting place for us. But then we upgraded really to a solution that checked all our boxes. Again, which was perhaps unique to us, but post-pandemic, I think, as everybody has noted, or during the pandemic, this notion of flexibility is critical to productivity. Quality of life, I think that's another one, as we were in a very tight hiring reality, hiring engineers in New York. You need to offer all the perks that you would assume apart from salary and other benefits. So having quality of life was really critical as well. So I think, as we looked for solutions, I became a big fan early on of what Upflex was doing, and have joined the ranks of supporters, and I'm excited to see the next 10-year bull run globally.
Nice. And Sanjay, just on this sort of co-working, in India, we see that all these co-working, spaces are really in commercial office buildings. Do you think they're going to move to sort of funkier places, nicer, non-commercial buildings?
I can't speak for India per se, but certainly, the notion of Zoom towns, especially in America, where people, again, when I speak quality of life, being able to live in suburbia, not being taxed by your commute, not being taxed by the high cost of living in a city, being able to perhaps afford a swimming pool, and being able to work remotely, I think has a strong appeal. I was in fact speaking to an entrepreneur the other day. He's opened up in a small town in North Carolina, 3 co-working spaces, and is fully booked back up. So I think you'll start to see, and again, I can't speak beyond my own personal experience, but yes, people need funky environments, and that just delivers a better quality of life.
Yeah. And Sanjay, do you see sort of, some manufacturing or education, move into the co-working spaces, or it's largely going to be like an office occupier kind of an environment only?
I mean, manufacturing, is interesting in the sense that, there's a high cost of capital for CapEx. If you're building big tools, we produce large water machines that go into home. So there's a big upfront cost. But I think as automation happens, 3D printing, et cetera, you'll start to see the ability for more efficient use of capital. And I think that efficiency is what investors are looking for, where capital moves towards. And I think that there's no reason why you wouldn't have and offer kind of a global distributed opportunity to bring costs down, or bring, again, productivity to the equation. Again, we're already doing it with our design teams. They're sitting in multiple locations, designing globally. You could even imagine that being outsourced, and look to how that could evolve as a category of opportunity. But I think you're already starting to see it for sure.
Super. Vincent, I'm going to come to you. I've had the pleasure of working with you for many years. You also have a unique advantage of having worked in India for many, many, many years, and then be a cosmopolitan citizen. Exactly what Sanjay said. A huge amount of exposure in many different geographies internationally. So a couple of questions, Vincent. One is, what brought you to Upflex? One, and second is, what is this Hyperflex space? If you can define what do you mean by Hyperflex space, and what attracted you to Upflex? And then I'm going to ask you a couple of questions on Upflex.
Sure. I think what brought me to Upflex, it was back in last summer. I've been a big fan of Flex and WeWork, of course. Karen, I have had several conversations, but what I saw, the combination of the technology that Upflex has to offer to the employer, the likes of Accenture, to be able to really help them understand the data behind where their workforce are going to be working from, for what purpose, whether they do it in teams or individually. That powerful technology, that tool that really helps them, combined with the user experience of the application that we have. I just thought, this is something that post COVID-19 has to be attractive to every single enterprise out there, irrespective of their size, their industry sectors, or their geography. And I was previously doing some advisory work for for IWG. So I know the space quite well. And I thought, I said to myself, Vincent, this is the time where you need to join this company because they're onto something. And so it's been about 8 months now. It's been super exciting. So, but it's more exciting than ever. It's actually now you, Anuj, and your team being able to really make this story in India, which I think is going to be an amazing market for Upflex.
Yeah, no, we are very excited about it, Vincent. It does bring in a virtual, solution to many occupiers who are looking at dispersed co-working spaces. So, Vincent, what is Hyperflex? What does it really mean, Hyperflex?
Well, it basically means that if you look at Upflex or platform, we have 670 different brands that we offer to a customer with one single contract. That, in essence, is Hyperflex. And I'll tell you a story. One of our customer chose us because he said, I don't make my employees wear uniforms. The same applies with the type of space that they may want to work in. Sometimes, they have employees who want to work in space which is very bright, others very small, very dark, very light, big, tall, shiny building, boutique location, near home, near a supplier, near a customer, near a partner, because you're trying to recruit somebody, or as Karen was saying, you may want to do an employee gathering and so forth. And you can do all of those different things with a single contract with Upflex and have the opportunity to work from multiple locations. We currently cover just under 6,000 locations around the world, 1,600 cities. And we already have close to 200 locations in India, as you know. And that's, without having anyone on the ground. We've had no boots on the ground at all. And so I can only imagine what your team's going to do over the next 6 months. But that is essentially, that is the power of Upflex. It's what I call Hyperflex. We love some of those brands more than others, but we also have it's a great thing for small operators, Anuj, in tier 2, tier 3 cities, because they can join that network. And so those large clients, they will be able to book space in those locations, which probably WeWork will never open it because it's not scalable. It doesn't fit their overall business model, and they want to stick to the larger locations. But there might be a very, very a great experience available in a tier 3, even a tier 4 city, and we'll be able to plug that location onto a network, which means it's great for the operator, it's great for the people who possibly work or live near that location, and it's great for real estate as a whole.
And Vincent, just changing gears, you've been in this space for some time now, and you've been working in very mature markets. And this concept of co-working flex offices has come into newer markets like India from the mature markets. So my question is, how's the relationship between occupiers and operators in developed markets been?
I think you could ask that question to Karan. He probably have a better answer than I do. But I think there's definitely a much better dialogue between operators and occupiers than what you normally see in traditional office buildings. Frankly, I compare the flex industry more as a hospitality sector. It's much closer to a hotel business model. I mean, the proximity that operators have with employees is phenomenal. And that allows them to really understand their client far better than a traditional landlord, who may see them in the lobbies and in the lifts and so forth, but is not going to live day in, day out with those employees. And so I think it's great to see that the successful operators often, and again, Karan can say otherwise if he agrees or disagree, but the community managers in the individual centers is as important as that hotel manager. How close is he or she to their customer? Are they listening? Are they making changes? Are they adapting? Whether it's, by designing space slightly differently. And I think we're going to see this proximity playing a very strong role in this post-COVID going back to the office era. The successful operators will be absolutely listening to their clients.
Absolutely, I agree with you, Vincent, that a flex space, co-working space is like a hospitality, and the manager on the floor needs to know his customers very well. My last question, I know we've run out of time, Vincent, to you is, what are some of the challenges that you think that the co-working operators will face?
Capital. It's capital and speed to market. For a new center to be operating and running, it takes a long time before you secure the location. Fine, you firstly decide where to go, secure it, sign a lease, design it, fit it out, furniture, and then managing it. It's a very complex cycle, and you have to be very good at it. And companies like WeWork have a great model, but there are many of them who will struggle if they don't have that highly engineering processes. So how do I secure the right location and make it successful? I think also you'll see more operators wanting to have a partnership with landlords under a management contract, like it is again in the hospitality sector, to avoid this capital constraint and this long-term lease liability obligation that you sit in. And the risk, just like a hotel, is that it's very easy for people to leave, and we've seen that in March 2020. When there was a big void, because that's the whole purpose of flexibility. And so, how do I manage those difficult times by lowering my risk by partnering with landlords?
Super. No, this is very exciting. I mean, we can go on and on, but I know we've run out of time. So I do want to thank all of you. It's been very interesting discussion. I mean, I've learned a lot of it. It does appear that this COVID-19 is perhaps going to move some of the fence sitters who've been sort of reluctant to get into the co-working space as occupiers, perhaps to transition into taking up more co-working spaces. Indian demographics does lend itself to bring people to some kind of a formal working environment. I think, Karan, you mentioned it, that hiring has been going on rapidly within the IT companies. At some stage, the teams need to come together. To Harish's point, on the non-IT companies, you anyway need to bring them to a more collaborative work environment. I didn't know that 70% of the occupiers today in many of these flex operators were really large enterprise companies, and it was only 30% which was a startup. That's a great point to note. And Amit, thanks for letting us know that March 2020, once the markets had opened up, your centers were really full. We're hoping with the vaccination progressing the way it is in India, and perhaps the ramp up of that, hopefully over the next 2 or 3 months, we will start to see opening up of offices and the centers becoming busy again. And interesting points, Vincent and Sanjay, that you mentioned were, on the hospitality space and ability to bring in sort of flexibility for the occupiers. Capital is a constraint. Fortunately, both Karan and Amit, I'm aware, have raised a ton of money. So for them, capital is not a constraint, but speed to market will be. And I know from both of them that they are continuing to expand and continuing to ensure that their growth remains in there. But I'll close it with what Harish said is that hopefully in the next 10 years is going to be a bull run. and hopefully a lot of the startup capital, which was getting attracted to China, may start to find its way into India and perhaps into the prop tech space. So thank you very much, and thanks for your time on a busy sort of Monday evening. I appreciate it and look forward to meeting up with you in person soon.
Thank you, Anuj.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thanks. Be safe. Bye.